准备了不好？好，三。
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kelvin Chua. I'm a lecturer at Hong Kong U Space. I'm currently teaching 2 postgraduate diploma programs. And the courses are business psychology, leading, managing, and developing talent, as well as leadership and talent management. So I will start with this presentation on handling workplace stress and well-being. Stress and well-being, studied as a discipline called occupational health psychology, are designed to address the contemporary societal concerns for occupational health and safety. It not only includes workers' physical state, but also emotional, cognitive, motivational, and behavioral aspects. Occupational health is a cross-discipline. It includes courses in 3 disciplines in psychology, namely health psychology, social and organizational psychology, and cognitive psychology. So what have we learned so far about stress and well-being? According to the preeminent endocrinologist Hans Salier, stress is a non-specific response of the body to any demands made upon it. Stresses can affect human health and cause a variety of illnesses. And the research shows that job insecurity, job loss, long working hours, workplace bullying, shift work, and lower status jobs all contribute to cardiovascular diseases, such as chest pain, heart attack, high blood pressure, and stroke. The evidence suggests that organizational culture and leadership affect employees' safety, health, and well-being. For example, abusive supervision has been linked not only to low levels of job satisfaction, reduced commitment, and turnover intentions, but also to increases in burnout, psychological distress, work-family conflict, and problem drinking. What are the current issues? There is a growing expectation for companies to take responsibility for supporting employees' emotional stability and health. During COVID, it has been reported that 40% of Americans struggled with mental health. The World Health Organization estimated mental health problems cost about nearly US $1 trillion per year in lost productivity. So for many, working from home has become the new normal, which has led to feeling more lonely, isolated, and overworked. COVID has changed how we work, but it does not have to be all bad. We just have to set boundaries to decide when we are going to stop and what needs at home we are going to take care of. Have a moment in which we can equip line managers to ask the right questions and have an open conversation with their employees. Arrivals from other countries will be required to undergo a compulsory 7-day quarantine in Hong Kong. The tightening of travel restrictions will hurt the hospitality and retail sectors. And analysts see Hong Kong's hotel market recovery falling behind that of Singapore and Taiwan. The key reasons with these markets are likely to recover faster than Hong Kong and that includes higher vaccination rates, as well as the government's willingness to reopen the borders. Now, Hong Kong's current unemployment rate from February to April of this year was about 5.4%. Now, that's comparing with the US Federal Reserve's standard of full employment at 4.5%, that means we are 1% over full employment. And in previous years, Hong Kong unemployment rates hovers around 2 to 3%. So for 2 to 3% of those unemployed in Hong Kong, that presents serious implications, especially when Hong Kong does not have a generous social welfare benefit system. Hong Kong residents aged 12 and above must have received 3 jabs in order to enter most premises, including pubs, restaurants, cinemas, gyms, and beauty parlors. But nearly half of the city's residents have not yet received their 3rd dose. Cathay Pacific has fired a small number of aircrew for failing to get COVID jabs without a valid medical reason. So what are the implications for an individual who loses his or her job? Apart from earnings, job loss can be devastating, because when one loses a job, one loses an in-group, their social circle that helps in maintaining self-identity, self-esteem, and their self-respect. In the US, companies such as Google, Meta, formerly Facebook, Twitter, Novartis, Ford, and Siemens allow employees to work from home permanently, or at least a hybrid model of at least 3 days in the office and the rest of the week from home. In the wake of a significant decline of COVID cases, government and private offices have announced to end work from home. Early this year, New York City Mayor Eric Adams criticized remote work, saying you can't stay at home in your pajamas all day, and suggested that work from home is economically unsustainable and harmful to low-income workers. And on the 1st of June, Elon Musk issued an ultimatum: return to the office or work somewhere else. Remote work is no longer acceptable. Yet a survey showed that 6 out of 10 employees are ready to quit the job if that option is taken out. So what are the causes of stress? Organizational factors include the following. It is obvious that some jobs are simply more stressful than others. The greater the extent to which the job requires decision-making, exchange of information with others, unpleasant physical conditions, and performing unstructured rather than structured work, the more stressful the task and the job tend to be. Similar sources of stress at work include role conflict from conflicting demands, role ambiguity from uncertainty, and overload or underload stress, just from having too much or too little to do. The lack of social support leads to stress from being socially isolated and ignored. Friends and family can actually provide emotional, financial, and information support at different times. The lack of participation in decisions leads to stress from helplessness and alienation. The major cause is that employees are neither allowed to witness nor to contribute to important business decisions that affect their jobs. Poor performance appraisals obviously leads to stress from little, none, or openly biased feedback, especially negative feedback without being told how to improve one's performance. Some jobs have to be performed in difficult and unpleasant working conditions, such as extremes of heat or cold, loud noise, crowding, poor lighting, or with old and inefficient machinery. Stress can also come from being stuck at the same level or beneath the glass ceiling for female employees, particularly. Managers can always build up expectations about employees' career development, but having these realistic or unrealistic expectations thwarted can be a source of stress and frustration for the derailed employee. More common among females than male employees is stress resulting from conflicts between home and work demands, with neither being tolerant of the other or supportive. Changes in company policy, reorganizations, mergers and acquisitions, delayering all lead to uncertainty and with it stress. In addition, the structure and climate of the changed organization may itself be a major source of stress. What about the individual factors of stress? Neurotics tend to dwell on their mistakes, disappointments, and shortcomings, and to focus more on negative aspects of the world in general. They seem more prone to experiencing stress and less able to cope with it. Locus of control refers to the extent to which people feel they have control over the events that influence their lives. People who believe that events occur in their lives are the result of their own behavior, ability, and effort are said to have the expectancy of internal controls, whereas those who believe events in their lives to be a function of luck, chance, or fate are said to have an expectancy of external control. Internals tend to see threatening events at work as less stressful, and they cope better with it than externals. Over 40 years ago, psychiatrists became interested in whether heart attack patients shared any common psychological traits. And through various studies, they did find a pattern labeled the type A behavior, which is characterized by excessive and competitive drive, and also an enhanced sense of time urgency. Optimists are hopeful in their outlook on life. They interpret a wide range of situations in a positive light. Pessimists, on the other hand, interpret many situations negatively, and studies indicate that optimists are much more stress-resistant than pessimists. Interestingly, optimism can be learned consciously by challenging any negative self-talk. Hardiness. Hardiness views stress as a challenge, and hardy people appear to differ from others in three aspects. They show higher levels of commitment, control, and challenge. So whether people suffer from stress or not is largely dependent on their coping strategies. Problem-focused coping is aimed at problem solving or doing something to change the source of stress. Emotion-focused coping is aimed at reducing or managing the emotional distress that is associated with a particular set of circumstances. What about medical-related outcomes? They concern the relationship of working conditions to the physical and psychological health. We are concerned with cardiovascular diseases such as high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. We are concerned with obesity and psychological disorders such as burnout, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, which can lead to substance abuse and suicide. The focal concern is burnout, depression, and alcohol problems, and how they are related to cardiovascular diseases. So this is the action of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA axis, involved in the stress process. The hypothalamus, upon receiving stress signals, produces corticotropin-releasing factor, or hormone. And by way of the bloodstream, this CRF arrives at the pituitary gland, precipitating the release of adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH. In response to ACTH, the adrenal cortex, which is just above your two kidneys, releases glucocorticoids, particularly cortisol and corticosterone. These hormones stimulate glycogenolysis, supplying energy to the muscles in response to demands during an alarm state. Cortisol also stimulates the liver to create new supplies of glucose and energy to help the body respond to stressors, which are critical to fight or flight. These hormonal signals drive increases in blood pressure and heart rate, which are thought to be very harmful if these increases persist as a result of chronic exposure to stress. What are some of the interventions that psychologists apply? Psychologists improve the health of workers by focusing on how the work itself is accomplished. In work design, especially job rotation, which is the practice of moving employees between jobs in an organization. 2, enlargement, involving adding additional activities within the same level to an existing job. For job enrichment, it refers to the process of increasing the motivating potential of a job, often by strengthening the key motivating characteristics such as skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. Ergonomics is interested in the design of furniture and equipment which makes it comfortable and effective for people who use it. For contemporary wellness programs, they are designed to enhance work-related coping skills and reduce stress-related symptoms, including mindfulness, which is the practice of being aware of your body, mind, and feelings in the present moment, thought to create a feeling of calm. Stress management helps participants to identify and monitor stress, avoid negative self-talk, acquire coping skills, set new goals, engage in positive self-talk, and use other cognitive behavioral techniques, such as time management and assertiveness training. Relaxation training affects the physiological experience of stress by reducing arousal. And relaxation therapies include deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, and yoga. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a talking therapy that can help you to manage your problems by changing the way you think and behave. By learning to control dietary habits, individuals can ameliorate the physiological reactions to stress caused by unhealthy diets, and with regular exercise, improve the mood and feelings of well-being, especially immediately after a workout. The public health prevention model is applied by psychologists to organizations as well as governments in some cases, especially the Scandinavian governments. In this model, the interventions are classified according to 3 categories. 1, primary interventions or prevention. The targets of primary interventions are individuals who are not at risk. For secondary interventions, they target individuals who are at risk for illness, injury, or ill-being. Tertiary interventions are directed at individuals who have experienced health declines and are intended to restore their health and well-being. So let's look at some of the primary interventions that are popularly implemented in multinational organizations. These benefits are available to all employees and are designed to prevent work duties from interfering with family responsibilities and vice versa. Flexible work arrangements includes flex time, which is a core period during which all employees must be available, example from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Beyond that, individual employees have the flexibility to structure their work day or work week, provided they have complete a predetermined number of working hours. That's typically 40 hours per week. Compressed work week is compressed into fewer than 5 days by increasing the number of working hours per day for the employee. The most common compressed work week is the 4-day, 40-hour work week. Part-time options are designed to reduce individual employees' workload in order to provide them with flexibility. Job sharing is an arrangement that allows 2 or more individuals to split a traditional 40-hour-a-week job. So one employee might perform the job from 8 to 12 p.m., for example, and the other from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Or they could work full but alternate days. Telecommuting is the formal term for work from home, right? And it offers individuals flexibility regarding their work locations. So fixed-site teleworkers perform some of their jobs at home or in a satellite office. Mobile teleworkers work predominantly in the field, and flexi workers mix office work with work in a home and in the field. What are secondary interventions? These benefits do not apply to all employees, but are designed to assist those who are at risk for experiencing work-family conflict and to help individuals meet their work and family responsibilities. In terms of benefits associated with childcare or elder care, we know that 45% of medium to large multinational corporations provide employees with dependent care allowances. And that could include childcare or elder care. 33% provide information and referral services to help employees obtain dependent care. And about 7% offer on-site childcare. Now, in Europe, it is not common for organizations to provide childcare for workers because the provision is governed and supported by a lot of European governments. Other companies offer full or partially paid sabbaticals or paid time offs to engage in activities for personal growth and development. For example, Google offers employees 20 paid days off a year to engage in voluntary work. American-based Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants offers employees 4 weeks of paid sabbaticals after employees have been working for the companies for 7 years. Last but not least, tertiary interventions. They are designed to support employees with health declines due to work-life imbalance. Employee assistance programs provide services such as individual and family counseling to help employees cope with harmful symptoms, for example, burnout, or to develop strategies to meet both work and family responsibilities. EAP programs are funded by organizations in order to help employees with personal difficulties and performance problems. So this is the end of my presentations. So I'm now, I do welcome any questions you may have of stress and well-being. Okay, I have a question from the floor. Which is the most effective treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder? Interesting. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a psychological disorder characterized by haunting memories, nightmares, social withdrawal, anxiety, numbness of feeling, and insomnia or sleeplessness. And they could linger for weeks or even months after a traumatic experience. In terms of medication, doctors use selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, also known as antidepressant drugs. And for psychological therapy, that would be cognitive behavior therapy. And these two are the preferred method of treatment for PTSD. Now, cognitive behavior therapy is a very popular therapy that combines cognitive therapy, changing, self-defeating thinking, and behavior therapy, which is changing the behavior. Any other questions? Okay, there's a second question. And this question is about burnout. Right? Is burnout related to cardiovascular diseases? Yes. Burnout is marked by emotional exhaustion, insomnia or sleeplessness, headaches, gastrointestinal problems, even cynicism and a low sense of self-efficacy in one's job. And there are interesting research out of the Scandinavian countries and the Middle East, especially in Finland, right, within the forest products industry. And they found that for manual and non-manual workers, those with high levels of burnout were more likely to be hospitalized for cardiovascular diseases, right, over the next 10 years in comparison with those non-burnout workers. And in Israel, there was a study for white-collar Israeli workers, and they found that burnout predicted later cardiovascular diseases. And when they deep dive and they analyze depression and burnout, they found that burnout was the more effective predictor, right, of cardiovascular diseases. Okay, the next question is a very good question. What would be your advice to students to cope with study stress? Very simple answer to that is learn your materials. But of course, first, coping with stress arise from being unprepared, right? Especially for your tests and your exams, right? And for, say, part-time students, many of them, they work on a part-time basis or even full-time basis, and then they're also studying for degree courses at Hong Kong U Space. So it's about managing their time right? So time management is extremely important. Okay? So you know when, right, you are supposed to be working, and the rest of the day, in your free time, you need to prioritize, right, your activities. Okay, so in terms of time management, right, you need to differentiate, right, what is extremely crucial, right, for you to do it, right? Otherwise, there will be consequences, very negative consequences. So, prioritize it as A. That's the most important. Then you have to start doing it. Right? What about other activities, which are important, but you can get it done, within 2-3 days or 1 week's time, right? Then you categorize that as B. Okay, that you can delay it and push it back later for a few hours or a few days. And those under category C are those, you can wait for, weeks or months, right, before you act on it. Okay, so time management is extremely critical. And in terms of your diet and exercise, right, that comes into play. Because when you're stressed out, and I've just given this presentation that for individuals who are stressed, you get elevated amounts of hormones, stress hormones, right? The corticotropin releasing hormone, the ACTH, and particularly cortisol, right? It builds up in your body. Now, in the short term, that is supposed to be good, right? Because the hormones generate energy in your body, right? It circulates into your muscles, right? It gives you strength and prepares you to fight your stressors, right? Either to basically fight or to run away, right? But in this case, heightened levels of glucose in your body system, as well as the adrenaline that comes from your stress hormones, keeps you awake and attentive for your studying. So that is good in the short term. But you need to find a release valve for that, right? Because if those hormones and glucose remain in your body, right, for a long, long time, because you're constantly stressed, it will damage your organs, right? And elevated amounts of glucose lead to diabetes, okay? And you can ameliorate these problems through diet and exercise, right? So have a low-fat, high-fiber diet, and more importantly, exercise regularly. Okay? So I'm not asking you to exercise for 3 hours or 6 hours, and you say, I don't have the time, right? That is okay. Even if it takes 15 minutes of stretching per day is good enough, okay? Because when you exercise, you perspire, right? And when you perspire, right, all the hormones, the glucose comes out of your body. And that's why exercise is very good for your body. At the same time, exercising releases a pleasure hormone in your brain. It's called endorphins. It makes you feel good. Okay? So after stretching or some light jogging or swimming, right, whatsoever, you'll feel good, right? Enough to, and more attentive, right, when you go back to your studies. Now, some of you may say that, hey, I don't like exercising. That's fine. Okay? If you don't like to exercise, look for your friends, right, or your partners to play a sport. Okay? Badminton, tennis, or even table tennis. Anything that involves movement, right, is good for you. And in the company of your friends or your family, right, it's that crucial social support that you need when you are studying, right? And that's very important. So not only it helps you to let off steam, right? It's good for your body, but also you have this interaction with your friends and your family, right? And that is very, very critical to cope with stress when you're studying. Other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you so much for your time and patience, and have a great weekend.